Hey, welcome back to my channel. And in this video, we're going to be talking about the Florida Gators and what factors in terms of position groups can help them in this upcoming season, which is about to start in just a little bit over a month. They play Utah August 31st, so in about a month and 9 days, every single weekend for the rest of the year will be football afterwards. You know, you got preseason football in the NFL, then you're going to have the regular season in the NFL. And college football, there is no preseason. It's just regular season straight into bowl season after that. And then in the NFL, you got your preseason, regular season, postseason as well. So next month in August will be from August to the first Sunday, or excuse me, the second Sunday of February. I forgot because of the NFL Super Bowl weekend. So from August to February, it's going to be football from here on out on the weekends, monthly. So in this video, this will be kind of a piggyback off of the video that I did for Florida, where I talked about how I thought they're going to be 7-5, and in that video, excuse me, it was more of an analysis of the season, the opponent, and what factors leading into what I think is going to be a Florida win or going to be a Florida victory. In this video, we're going to be doing an internal analysis of Florida heading into their season and what I think will either help them win a game or win around 7 games, maybe a game more than what I expect, or maybe lose a couple of games more than what I expect them. I expect them this season to go 7-5. That's which may not sound that encouraging for most Florida fans, considering the expectations that there is with this program. But it is still somewhat of an improvement after you've had a couple of 6 and 7 seasons. So this will be a video off of what I think what will play into the season. On offense, we're gonna start there. As you can see, I'm on the Florida Gators website, and I'm on their football roster program. Florida's thing just popped up. So we're going to go start on the offense, and we're going to go all the way down to the quarterback position because where else are we going to start? Graham Mertz, the biggest name of the group. He was a transfer from Wisconsin. Played 4 seasons there, was a 4-year starter. He's in competition with Jack Miller the third. I knew it was either the third or the second. It was one of those two. Who was a transfer from Ohio State last year. Didn't really see a whole lot of action. Was behind Anthony Richardson throughout the year, and didn't really start until his final year against Oregon State. I don't think he performed that well, but the whole Florida team didn't perform that well. I understand they had a lot of players out, but still, I expected a little bit more. But we're not going to. I'm not going to beat that dead horse. I already talked about that in my Florida prediction for their season last video. So Mertz, Jack Miller, they're obviously competing with each other for the starting positions. From what I've been hearing from both Florida players, Florida coaches, and Florida insiders, Billy Napier has not yet officially made a decision. From what I hear, he should be close to making that decision relatively soon. But if I was a betting man, I would bet most likely Graham Mertz. I'd rather take my chances with Graham Mertz than Jack Miller. Like I said, I was not impressed with him. Seeing the spring game, I see that Graham Mertz knows how to run the basics of the offense better than Jack Miller, in my opinion. Jack Miller is does a little bit better than Graham Mertz in terms of ad-libbing, like scrambling and buying himself time to, you know, uh, I guess make plays, not necessarily with his legs like Anthony Richardson, but to at least ad lib a little bit. Graham Mertz, however, seems to be more in terms of skill set of what Billy Napier wants from his quarterback. A guy who will go through his reads, make the easy throws like the quick slants and the quick outs, and solidified the short passing game, which was what Anthony Richardson's problem was. Anthony Richardson made some good deep throws down the field, and he obviously was a maniac with his legs. But when it came to consistently landing the short passing game, it was just not good. And a lot of it times was because his mechanics wasn't off. This is the reason why I think Florida's passing game will be a little bit better with Graham Mertz. I'm not saying by much, but a little bit better because I think Graham Mertz understands the short passing game better. He understands how to play the quarterback position a little bit more instinctively. Throw with his feet set, make sure his mechanics are good, go through his reads, go through his progressions instead of just one progression and then all of a sudden look for a room to run like Anthony Richardson was. Even though it was entertaining to watch, number 15 for Florida last year, see the Utah game, see the Texas A&M game, see the big run they had against LSU. Uh, you know, Anthony Richardson was a stallion, but he did not play the position well, in my opinion. And I think Graham Mertz will do that for Florida, and I think he will improve the passing game a little bit better, short, intermediate. You don't need him to be Superman, but it's I think Florida's passing offense will be much better with him at the helm. But a lot of that is dependent upon the offensive line. Football starts in the trenches. Any football fan knows that. And on the offensive line, Florida lost about three starters last year. Ethan White, Osiris Torrance, another offensive lineman that went into the transfer portal during around winter time. I can't remember his name, but Florida lost three. Osiris Torrance went to the NFL draft. Oh, the Florida Gators lost three starters off their offensive line last year. There's this narrative that Florida lost five starters on their offensive line last year, which is not true. Kingsley Egwacom is a guy that started every single game for Florida at the center position last year, and he's coming back. Austin Barbers is moving from right tackle to left tackle, so he's just playing a different position. I don't know where this narrative came that Florida lost five stars on the offensive line. That's just not true at all. Like, I don't know where they got this from. Austin Barber, there you go. From number 58 from Jacksonville, Florida, Tristan Academy. I don't know where this narrative came that Florida lost five starters on the offensive line. That's just not good. They've lost a few other linemen towards the transfer portal, but that's just backed up. They just recently lost Keontae Goodwin. You see him here, number 78, but he's leaving to go back home because he's dealing with some family issues, which heartfelt condolences towards him. They lost David Connor, who went to the transfer portal. So, but those guys are mainly backups. It was just more hurting from a depth standpoint than from a from a starting offensive line standpoint. But Florida brought in some guys in the transfer portal and the recruiting class. The biggest name from the transfer portal that they brought in was Big Michael Mazuka from Baylor. He was a multi-year starter for the Baylor Bears. They also brought in uh, his name should be on here. Damian George Jr. He's a redshirt sophomore for Alabama. Started every single game for Alabama last year. So you lost some starters, but you gained a couple of starters in the transfer portal at that position, and you have two starters coming back in Kingsley and Egocom and Austin Barber. So I don't think Florida's offensive line will be that bad as a lot of people indicate. So those are the guys. No matter if it's Graham Mertz or Jack Miller, those are going to be the guys projected to start for Florida. In terms of backups, you have Kaden Jones, who was the big, who's the big freshman from Louisiana. You also have Roderick Kearney, who's an offensive lineman that Florida flipped from Florida State. Uh, Kanaje Harris, and if you're a Florida fan, you need to highlight his. We're going to highlight his name right here because from what I've been hearing, Florida has been really liking what they've been seeing from him at the right guard position. And it would not surprise me if he turned out to be the starting right guard for Florida against Utah this in August 31st. They're going to be on the road at Utah, and it would not surprise me if Kanaja Harris was the starter at that right guard spot. From what I've been hearing, Florida, the coaches have been liking what they've seen from him. He's a true freshman from IMG Academy, Point St. Lucie, Florida. So that would be a big plus, and plus not just a big plus for Florida that they can get a true freshman out there to start, but also it's a good indication to the offensive line commits that Florida has this year. Your Fletcher Westfall, your Mike Williams, your Marcus Maskell, the guys that Florida has committed at the offensive line position, to have a true freshman start already for them, that should give them good indication that, hey, you know what, these guys can already are already building freshmen into starters. So that would be a good a good sign for them. Um, and not just and offensive line also is not just for protecting quarterbacks, it's for opening up holes in the running back position, and this is by far Florida's best position on offense. running back. You have your two monsters up here in Montreal Johnson and Trevor Etienne. Both of those guys were your best playmakers on offense last year. Trevor Etienne, a true junior from Louisiana who came over to Florida with um, Billy Napier. Trevor Etienne, who's a true sophomore. Uh, from another Louisiana running back that Billy Napier probably was recruiting at the Raging Cajuns when he was coming up. Trevor Etienne made all freshman SEC last year. So in year one, he already was a productive player for Florida. He was by far the best addition to Florida's entire team last year. Uh, whether it be from the transfer portal or from the recruiting class. So uh, you gotta love the fact that number 7 is playing for the Gators. Behind them is true freshman Trayon Webb, Jacksonville, Florida, Tristan Academy. They added a JUCO transfer in Jacoby Jackson, and they have Anthony Rubio from Miami, Florida. Cam Carroll is a transfer from Tulane, the Tulane Fighting Green Wave, I think it is from Tulane, and he right now is probably projected to be the third running back behind Trevor and Montrell. And I kind of like what I saw from the running backs in the spring game, especially Trayon Webb, but, he's behind three veteran running backs in Carroll, Etienne, and Junior Johnson, who already have experience on the football field. So Trayon Webb, excuse me, will probably have to wait until, maybe next year to, get more reps out there on the football field. And then you go to the wide receiver position. You have one check mark at the wide receiver position is Ricky Pearsall. He was Florida's best receiver last year. Came from Arizona State, as you can see right here. Chandler, Arizona, Corona del Sol High School. I'm guessing that's the high school. He was a big playmaker for the Gators last year. Had a good produced some decent numbers. I think he was like just underneath 700 yards. He had about it was like 4 to 6 touchdowns last year. He came back from Florida, and he's a sophomore, a senior, so this will be his last year with the Gators. So you gotta love the fact that he came back to help the team out. And then after that, it's kind of a little bit of a question mark to be who's that number two guy. You have Caleb Douglas here, who was a sophomore, was a part of the 2022 class. Caleb Douglas showed some very nice speed in the spring game, so it wouldn't surprise me if Caleb Douglas could possibly be a starter. You got the two big name wide receiver recruits, Andy Jean and Aiden Mizell. I think between these two, I think it's more likely that Andy G would be producing for Florida. He's well touted for his route running, well touted for his speed. They said he runs faster than he in football pads than he looks when he's just in his workout gear. He plays faster than his game looks. Um, I think if there was going to be one of these freshmen outside of Kanaje Harris, who I think is going to be a starter, if there was another freshman that I would pick for Florida to produce some solid numbers, it would be this guy Andy Jean right here. Aiden Mizell, touted for his speed and his route running. He's a true freshman. You have Di Chikikau Bowman. I don't know how to say his name, so I tried. Then you have him. You have a redshirt sophomore and Alex Gonzalez. You have Eugene Wilson after him. He's a true freshman out of Tampa, Florida. This guy was an enrollee, a late enrollee. He didn't enroll until the summer of this past year, so you don't really expect too much from him. What I am being told is that he is touted for his speed and his shiftiness. He's not going to be returning kicks this year. That's or at the very least, returning punts. That's Ricky Pearsall's job. He said that in the SEC media days. But I really like Eugene Wilson, and I'm excited to see what happens once he has a full year being at the campus and being in the program when he has that under his belt. After that, you have a Khalil Jackson, Taylor Spiro, Daniel Cross, Zach Sedaros, Jackson Wade, Brian Green Jr., and Marcus Burke. So, but if I had to pick three starters right now for Florida's wide receiver group, because in college football, running three receivers is uh, a common occurrence in today's football. So I would say Ricky Pearsall, Caleb Douglas, and AD Jean. Those would be my three picks to be Florida's biggest contributors out of this wide receiver group. Tight end group, this is probably the biggest question mark. Well, outside the quarterback position, the biggest question mark of the team. You have Keon Zipper hurt himself in practice, so he's not going to be performing for Florida at all this season. You have Arliss Boardingham, who's a redshirt freshman uh, from Van Nuys, California. Didn't really produce many big numbers for Florida. You have Jonathan Odom, who got some snaps for Florida last year. Uh, Tony Livingston is a true freshman. Dante Zanders, who I actually think, if I remember correctly, he converted from defensive line. So a lot of question marks right now at that tight end position for Florida, which is why the commitment of Amir Jackson from Portal, Georgia, was so huge because right now Florida doesn't really have any. Florida's the complete antithesis of Georgia. Like Georgia has like 4 or 5 tight ends that could start on any SEC team you can name. But and that's including Texas and Oklahoma. But Florida has a big question mark at that position, so it'll be interesting to see which one of these players could step up for them. If I had to take a guess, I'll say Odom because he did have some playing experience. And then if he's not available, hopefully Arliss Boardingham would uh, give Florida some nice numbers for them this year. Then we go to the defensive side of the ball. Florida's going to be playing a different defense than before because of the coordinator change. Patrick Toney, who was the safeties coach, he went to go coach for the Arizona Cardinals, along with Florida's tight end coach from last year, William Pagway, I think his name was. He went to Arizona with Patrick Toney, so they hired Austin Armstrong, who was the defense coordinator under Southern Miss. Austin Armstrong was expected to go coach the linebackers at Alabama, but Florida offered him the defense coordinator position. And from what I've read, he has experience working with Coach Napier during their time at Louisiana. So it'll be interesting to see how the new defense will perform under the new coordinator. Here you have the cornerback groups. Jason Marshall Jr. is obviously the biggest name of this list. He was a 5-star commit for Florida under Dan Mullen in the 2021 class. He's been a multi-year starter for Florida. Right now, it's really a competition for who's going to start opposite of him. You have Jalen Kibber, who transferred from Georgia, got some reps last year. Um, you also have Jaden Hill, who had some reps, in-game reps for Florida last year as well. But Devin Moore seems to be kind of like a fan favorite, and kind of he was playing. He was projected to be a multi-starter during the year last year, but he got hurt, so his season was cut short. So you want to see how he bounces back from that injury, and then you have Dijon Johnson, who was a big name recruit who Florida flipped from Ohio State. He's coming out of Tampa, Florida, playing out of Wharton High School. You have Aaron Gates, a commit, who was a true freshman, Moreland, Georgia, Trinity Christian High School. You have these two more true freshmen up top here, Sharif Denson and Jakeem Jackson. Now, to me, if I actually kind of want to see Jakeem Jackson start opposite of Jason Marshall Jr. A lot of coaches are liking what kind of have expressed to reporters and insiders of Gators football that they like what they see from Jakeem Jackson, and it wouldn't surprise me if he became a starter for Florida at that position at a Kissimmee, Florida, Osceola High School. Um, you know, Jakeem Jackson to me is kind of the sleeper of the 2023 class for Florida. With all the big names that they had, Jakeem Jackson to me was a guy that could produce better numbers for Florida than what could be known. Sharif Denson from Jacksonville, Florida, Bartram Trail. He's expected to play that star position, which is that kind of like that nickel corner safety type for Florida at that position. So. It'd be interesting to see how he plays there. Then we're going to continue in the secondary. We're going to go scroll all the way back down to the safety position. And to me, safety position is the biggest question of this defense. You have Kamari Wilson, who was the very first 5-star recruit that Billy Napier brought in when he got here from IMG Academy. Kamari Wilson was thinking about going to Georgia, but when Billy Napier was hired at Florida, he was able to convince Kamari Wilson to come to the swamp and play for the Gators. Kind of got some reps last year, but never really, not enough to secure a starting position And from what I've been hearing, Florida has been thinking about maybe kicking him down a linebacker. So I think it will be a pivotal year for Kamari Wilson in terms of his development. Is he going to stay at safety, or is the team going to kick him down to linebacker? And then you have Miguel Mitchell, who is a uh, possible starting candidate as well. He and Kamari Wilson seem to be in competition with each other for a starting spot at the safety spot. Sorry about that. I had to drink water a little bit. But underneath him is Jordan Castell from West Orange High School, Orlando, Florida, a true freshman safety commit. And then right here is the biggest name of the safety group, in my opinion, R.J. Moten. Delran, New Jersey, from Delran High School, was a Michigan player but transferred to Florida in the second transfer portal window. And if I had to pick one starter, I would say it's him because he had a lot of starting experience for Michigan last year, and he'll be bringing that experience to the secondary, which doesn't really have a whole lot. So I would say RJ Moten is probably the one starter out of the safety position that I would say. Then you have Bryce Thornton, who came from College Park, Georgia, Milton High School. Jadarius Perkins, who transferred from Mississippi Gulf Coast. I don't know what CC stands for. You have Aham Covington, Cajon Rockley, and Dakota Mitchell and Jamarcus Winston. Apparently, this guy was a wide receiver convert. He converted from safety to wide receiver, so at least playing as a wide receiver, he has natural ball skills, which is not really known with defensive backs. But I would say it's R.J. Moten, and then whoever's going to be starting for him after starting next to him in that safety group. And it looks like it's going to be mainly between Kamari and Miguel Mitchell. Um, It'll be interesting to see what this secondary is going to look like with Utah just around the corner. Now we're going to go from the defensive back down to the linebacking group. Now I'm not sure if defensive line will be edge will be counted as a defensive line or a linebacker. So I'm gonna start off with the edge players first. Princely Umanyelin. He was an edge player, true junior, from Manor, Texas. He actually started for Florida at the edge position towards the end of the year last year, and actually produced some good numbers. So now he's going to be heading into this year as a uh, verified starter. He'll be starting at the edge for Florida come Utah. So I'm excited to see him have a full year to play starter reps and be an impact player for the defense. After him, you got Kelby Collins, who was my favorite recruit of the previous recruiting class, coming from Gardendale, Alabama. Nick Saban wanted him. It was I think he said his top two came between Alabama and Florida, and obviously he picked Florida. So the fact that Billy Napier was able to steal him from Nick Saban shows that this guy may have something to him. I'm really excited to see Kelvin Collins in the Gators uniform. After him, Justice Boone. You have TJ Searcy, who's coming from Georgia, who's a true freshman. He was part of that good defensive line class that Florida had last year, along with Cameron James, in-state talent, Olympia High School from Orlando, Florida. And then after him, you have Bryce Capers, Jack Pyburn, both from Jacksonville, Florida, but different high schools, obviously. You have Lane Swafford. I don't know much about him. Now we're gonna go to the inside linebacker position, and Shamar James. This guy to me is going to be a big impact player for Florida last year. He made, along with Trevor Etienne, he made all freshman SEC team last year, and unlike Trevor Etienne, he wasn't a starter, or at the very least didn't get starter reps. Like he played a reserve inside linebacker role, yet he already made all freshman SEC. So him at the inside linebacker position, I'm very confident in what's going to happen there. Rest of the linebacker position is going to be kind of a competition to see who's going to be playing alongside him at that spot. Some thinking Derek Williams, some people think Scooby Williams. Maybe it would be one of the two transfer guys that they got, Terhada Mitchell and Deuce Spurlock, who came from Ohio State, Michigan, respectively. So they went from being big rivals in the Big Ten to being teammates on the SEC. Uh, it's going to be gonna be a tight race at that inside linebacker spot. But Shamar James, I'm really excited to see what I'm gonna see from him, and that'll be huge for Florida. And now we're gonna go to the defensive line position, and this right here I think will be the most improved group of the entire roster. The defensive line depth last year was very lacking. They did not produce enough stopping the run and putting pressure on the quarterback. Javon Dexter played like 500 snaps, which is insane for a defensive lineman, and I think that's part of the reason. I think that the reason why that is the case because I don't think the coaches were confident in the rest of the defensive linemen outside of maybe a few other guys. But I think they're going to like the defensive line this year. Chris McKellen, who had some nice flashes as a true freshman last year, when he could possibly be a nice rotation defensive lineman on passing downs. You have Will Norman, who I really liked, coming from he was from IMG Academy, but then he transferred up to New Jersey to play at Eastside High School. But I really like Will Norman. Desmond Watson is a fan favorite, especially for that play he made against South Carolina, where he literally ripped the ball out of Spencer Rattler's hands. You got a couple of more defensive linemen right here: Nicholas Flynn, Jalen Humphreys, Caleb Banks, big transfer from Louisville, Kentucky. We play for the Louisville Cardinals this year. Uh, he's going to be. It's going to be project. He's projected to be a starter for Florida at that defensive tackle spot. Connor Homa, Tierrick Norwood, Sebastian Scott, Keenan Landry, Tyreek Seep. You also have Jamari Lyons, Gavin Hill, who was a freshman that Florida got from a local commit that Florida got, and then you have Big Cam Jackson from Memphis, who's physically the biggest D lineman on this list outside of Desmond Watson. This man is massive, 6'6", 371. He was Florida's biggest target, physically and figuratively at the defensive line spot. So it'll be so I'm glad that he and Caleb Banks will be playing at the defensive tackles position this year to clog offensive line holes and open it up for the linebacker position, like Shamar James or Scooby Williams, whoever the two linebackers will be. So uh, that's my analysis of Florida's positions. I think in terms of freshmen, I think the guys that could have the biggest impact could be Jakeem Jackson. Uh, Go scroll back down wide receiver position, Andy Jean, and then back up to the offensive line position in Kanaje Harris. And I think that's because both of those guys have a better opportunity to be starters than the rest of the class does. Because Jakeem Jackson at the cornerback position is there's a competition outside of Jason Marshall Jr. Andy Jean, there's not really a whole lot of solidified, proven commodity as the wide receiver spot, and Kanaja Harris because the Florida coaches have been raving about him throughout the I don't want to say off season. There are no off season in college football, but throughout the spring and the summer, they've applauded him the most. Um, Out of all their freshmen linemen, and it would not surprise me if he was starting at right guard against Utah. So those are the three freshmen that I would say um, would could have the biggest impact on Florida this upcoming year. In terms of second year players, I already know what to expect from Trevor Etienne, but Shamar James playing it at having a starter, having being a starter this year, playing that inside linebacker role after what he did for Florida, and he didn't have starter reps. He was a reserve, but he didn't really start the entire season. But now having a full off season, more confidence. The game has slowed down for him, and now he'll be starting at that inside linebacker spot. I think I'm gonna like what I see from Shamar James this upcoming year in terms of, and also for second year players, keep an eye on I'm gonna keep my eyes on Chris McClellan, and I'm gonna keep my eyes on Devin Moore coming back from that injury that he had last year. And then in terms of transfer portal additions, uh, the two D linemen Caleb Banks and Cam Jackson, and then to continue with the defense, R.J. Moulton. Those three additions that Florida's gonna have. Uh, from the transfer portal on the defensive side of the ball, I think they're going to really help improve that defense. RJ Moulton's going to bring starting experience to the safety position, which does not have a lot of. And Caleb Banks and Cameron Jackson are going to bring size, power, and strength to that defensive tackle position. And I think Florida's defense will going to perform much better simply because of the fact that there's more depth on that defensive line and there's more uh, proven commodities, and there's just more talent at the defensive line position now as opposed to last year. So I don't think you're going to see a defensive lineman have 500 reps like Javon Dexter did last year. I think the defensive lines are going to perform much better, and whether or not that's going to help Florida win more games or lose more games than what that I expect them to, that will be seen once they take the field this upcoming year.